Welcome to the Big Freakin Change podcast, where we dive deep into the stories of those who took bold action, embraced uncertainty, and transformed their lives without ever feeling ready. I'm your host, Cara Poppet, author of The Big Freakin Change and the creator of the Get Unstuck Cycle of Change model. Each week, we'll sit down with remarkable individuals who have taken bold steps in their lives, personally and professionally, to make meaningful change. Whether you're seeking a career shift, personal growth, or a boost in confidence, our goal is to inspire you to stop waiting and start taking action. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our podcast, Big Freaking Change. We are talking to amazing people that have done extraordinary things, and they have embraced the idea of making change in their lives. I'm so excited today to have Nina Nesdoly, who is a speaker, researcher, and expert on neuroscience of work-life balance. We all need more work-life balance. Oh my goodness. She's also an expert in stress and burnout prevention. She leverages her background in neuroscience and management to help people and organizations build better work-life balance. Nina is currently pursuing her PhD study, working work-related stress, and her TEDx talk on how to relieve stress when you're overwhelmed. It was also selected as the editor's pick by TED. And I'm so excited to have you, Nina, for so many reasons. The biggest reason is you have a personal story of burnout, and you really inspired thousands of people through your keynote, through your speaking, through your research. And I'm just delighted to welcome you onto this podcast where we have real conversation and we make real change. So welcome, Nina.
Thank you, Cara. I'm so excited to be here.
So Nina, tell me a little bit, we'll get right into it. Tell me a little bit about why you picked this area of focus and why it matters to you.
It was a combination of my educational background and personal experience coming together. I went through and did my bachelor's of neuroscience and mental health, which had a huge focus on stress and how stress impacts the body, your experiences. Stress is kind of at the center of everything to do with our health and well-being. I then went on to do a master's in management, studying how leaders impact the way that employees experience stress at work. And I'm now pursuing a PhD studying work-related stress, again, looking at factors that influence people's experiences of stress at work. When I was in my bachelor's, I had my own experience with burnout. I didn't realize it was burnout at the time. It wasn't actually until I was in my master's degree starting to study stress and burnout that I looked back and I was like, oh my gosh, that was burnout that I went through and then recovered from. So after I completed my master's, it felt like a really natural next step to use my personal experience and education together with my background as a workshop facilitator. I used to work for Apple doing that to then help teams and help people overcome burnout using strategies from the science.
I love it. Nina, I'm always very inspired by you. I know I've told you this before, but I'm really inspired by how smart you are and how dedicated to learning you are and really to make an impact. And when I watched your TEDx talk, the thing that I took away from it instantly was you said stress needs to come out of your body. And I knew this instinctively, intuitively, but I didn't really know that it was like, no, this is a real thing. And you explained, how a child couldn't sit still and they had to like get their emotions out and, they colored with the crayon. And it was such a visual, powerful example on, mental well-being and health and wellness and how we have to remove stress from our bodies. Can you speak more on that? Because it's just a brilliant concept that we all need reminders on.
Absolutely. So stress is a psychological and a physiological response to any demands in our environment, be that the external environment, our jobs, or the internal environment, things in our head that are real or totally made up that we're responding to. So stress is our minds and our bodies mobilizing extra resources so that we can then respond to some discrepancy between what we're experiencing and where we want to be. When we experience stress, we're often pretty aware of what's going on in our mind, but in such a fast-paced society, we've become pretty disconnected from the physiological part of stress and what that feels like in our bodies, and we're often pushing it down. But when we are stressed, we have cortisol circulating through the body. We may have epinephrine to go with our fight or flight response and other byproducts that are moving through us.
Mm-hmm.
Our bodies have natural systems in place for relieving stress. But the thing is, we're often moving so quickly from one stressor to another that that's not our focus. That's not what our body is doing, because now we're covering up that stress that we felt so that we can go to our next meeting and show up in a professional way. So by creating opportunities to let tension out of our body, we get to let that stress out. And then it gets easier to do things like relax. I did a workshop for a team a few weeks ago. We were talking about the difference between stress relief and relaxation. And one of the guys said in the chat, I just realized I have never actually relaxed ever in my life because I haven't been relieving stress. If you've ever had
Wow.
that experience of like, you're trying to chill, you're lying on the couch, you're watching TV, maybe you've even gone for like a beautiful spa day and you just can't relax, you're like shaky and
Mm-hmm.
you feel lethargic and you don't feel good, even though you're quote unquote relaxing. It's because you haven't let the stress out of your body first. So the stress and tension is still there, building up inside of you, wearing you down while you're trying to relax. Whereas if you take a minute to let that go first, now it's going to be easier to relax, disconnect, do all the other things that are good for your well-being.
So can you go a little deeper and tell us how we let that stress out? So give us some more examples on what we can do to get that stress out before we go into relaxation.
We need three key things to let stress out. This is from my TEDx talk. To let tension out, limit information in, and lower the barrier to entry. So that first step, let tension out, is about the activity that we're selecting. Any activity where you're getting something out of your body is typically a good way to relieve stress. This is words leaving your body when you talk to someone, sweat when you exercise, the crayon on the page, like
Mm-hmm.
that kid scribbling that I talk about in the TEDx talk. So if you think about activities where there's something going out, the stress can go out with whatever it is that you're allowing to leave your body. It's going to include creative practices, socializing, any form of movement, even things like meditation where we have the breath that is being let out of our bodies a great way to uh, are a great way to relieve stress.
Mm-hmm.
The second key is to limit information in. So while doing these activities that let tension out, not combining that with learning, working, social media, listening to podcasts, even this one. If you're trying to let some stress out of your body right now,
Warning.
pause the podcast for 5 minutes, just go for your walk and then put it back on. And you're going to find you enjoy the podcast even more because you let the tension out first. So we want let tension out, limit the information that we're taking in so that we're not dedicating our energy to processing. And finally, lower the barrier to entry, which means pick something easy. Pick whatever is going to be the most accessible way for you to relieve stress. You can always move up to bigger things. It's not to say, you can't go to the gym for an hour, but if you're really stressed and you just need to let some tension out of your body, you don't have to pack up and go to the gym. Just have a little dance party in your living room for a couple minutes, shake it out, doodle, talk to a friend, do something that's really easy to get that stress out. And then you're going to find it's easier to move on to other activities.
I love that. I guess that's why we love dancing together, is we get that stress out of our body when me and you are
Yes,
together.
we dance it out.
I love that. Nina, one thing that hearing you speak on this that I think about is for a lot of high achieving people, both men and women, when you don't have a lot of time to reset or, you leave from a stressful career, you go into your home with children, with demands. What can we do that's, how do we change our mindset around work-life balance, around burnout? Like, what are some things that we can do and start having this conversation so that we can live better lives and change the mentality of like hustle harder and, keep going and push hard and all of that when you're a high achieving person?
Tap into your existing mindset to get you to do things that are good for your well being. We often want to start with this mindset change where we're going to move from hustle culture narrative, which are so deeply ingrained to put productivity first, to push ourselves, always having these goals that we're working on. And we look at that and we go, but I want to be this person who prioritizes my well-being and who rests and who is relaxed. That's such a big jump. It's such a big jump. You're not that person right now. And you're just freaking out your body by trying to be that way. So start by tapping into the hustle narrative and embracing the fact from the science that rest is productive.
Mm-hmm.
Your memory is better when you sleep. Your energy is higher when you move. You are more creative when you take breaks. Everything that is good for your well-being is also good for your productivity. That's where you start. You say rest is a productive thing for me. It's actually going to contribute to my performance and everything else that I want to be doing as a high achieving person. And as you then start to do more things that are good for your well-being and you see the impact on your life, your body, your mind, your mindset is going to shift naturally. We
Mm-hmm.
kind of have this narrative in our culture of like change your mindset first and then change your life. But the relationship between your mind and body goes both ways. Your mind will also adapt to reflect whatever you're frequently doing with your body. So if you are frequently prioritizing your well-being, your mind is going to pick up on that and go, wow, that feels really good. Maybe we need a new mindset that says prioritize well-being, put myself first. And that over time is going to start to replace those hustle narratives that have been driving us.
Mm-hmm. In my book, Nina, I talk about resting is investing and a new idea to pouring back into ourselves. And when I heard you say, rest is productive, I love that. And I needed to hear that from a neuroscience perspective because I'm like, I know this and there's research that says this. But then when it's like hammered home that way, it almost gives us a permission pass or validation that you need to rest and it's good for you and take the rest because it's going to enhance your life. So thank you for that. Nina, when we're talking about making change in our life, whatever kind of change may be relevant. So it could be occupational change, financial change, spiritual, physical, environmental, all of these different factors. When we change in one area, it often will trigger changes in other areas. Can you speak to that from a neuroscience perspective?
So when we start making changes in one area of our life, it doesn't really matter which area it is. Your brain and body adapt to whatever you frequently do. So there's always going to be carryover into some other part of your life. We say in neuroscience, fire together, wire together, which means that whatever neurons are frequently firing in sync with each other at the same time, they're going to wire together. So now those connections are stronger moving forward. So when you're making changes in one area of your life, you're changing your brain in some way if that area that you're dedicating your time to really becomes a consistent habit and thing that you're doing. So whatever change is happening in your mind in one area is naturally going to have spillover to other areas because you're now bringing this new part of yourself, these new connections in your brain from one area to whatever the other one is. If you're getting more dedicated in the gym, for example, now your brain is going to be healthier. You're going to have more energy. You're teaching yourself that you can show up consistently and take care of yourself. That's going to translate into more energy and focus at work, being able to enjoy your work more potentially if you're tapping into like a flow state in your exercise. Anything that you're doing in one area carries over because of these changes in your physiology that go with
Mm-hmm.
changes in your life.
Yes. And Nina, you really brought, I know you introduced me to the Wheel of Emotions, and I was looking into it for my book, and I have a section on it, and I talk about the brain being a prediction machine and that it likes certainty over, risk or fear. Can you go a little deeper into that concept?
That's a really interesting one because your brain wants to keep you safe, not happy,
Yes.
safe. And people often really struggle with this concept because they're like, well, then why would my brain keep me in a bad situation? Why would
Right.
my brain want me to stay burned out or with this boyfriend who clearly sucks? But for your brain, safety is familiarity because at least if you are burnt out and you've been burnt out for a while, you know what you're getting. Your brain, as you said, is a prediction machine. It's always trying to figure out what's going to happen next based on cues in your environment combined with your past experiences. If your brain can figure out what's going to happen next, it can physiologically prepare you for what's happening next. It can allocate resources in your body to deal with what happens.
Hmm.
So, if what is familiar to you is showing up every single day to a job that you hate and that is burning you out, your brain knows how to allocate the resources in your body for that day. It knows what it's going to feel like. And if it knows what it's going to feel like, then it says, okay, we're safe. We got this. We know what to do. But that's going to keep you in some places that are potentially not the best for you in your life. So sometimes we have to kind of override this prediction machine
Yeah.
thing that our brain does for us, where it's trying to keep us safe and say, okay, I realize that for my brain, this is really familiar and familiarity gives a sense of safety, but I can see that in the long term, this isn't going to be good for me. This isn't going to be good for my mental health, my well being. So I'm going to choose to actively make a change, even if it might feel uncomfortable and in contrast to what my brain is saying it wants today, because your brain is just going to want what it knows.
Yes, 100%. Nina, I know you do a lot of coaching and consulting with businesses as well as individuals. And when they're wanting to make a change, let's talk organizational first and then personal. What are some things that you remind them about? Like, do you say to them, change is hard. This is why we're resisting this, and here's how to do it. So, could you give us kind of an overview of your perspective and how you really help people make different types of changes in their lives?
So at an organizational level, one of the biggest things that we talk about is that change is really hard at an organizational level. It takes a long time to change a culture. And I am very upfront with my clients that when you bring me in for management consulting and burnout prevention programs, that needs to be part of a larger approach to organizational well-being if you really want to create a culture that is naturally healthy for people and not going to be associated with burnout. We can't have one and done on a workshop series and then never talk about the strategies that we learned ever again. That's not going to work. What we see
Hmm.
in the research is that stress management training and burnout prevention training with teams does work, in particular when there's buy in from the employees. So, this
Yes.
is the other reason that I love working with teams. This is one of the reasons I love working with teams is we get to make really sustainable change because now everybody's on the same page. Like having shared language, shared strategies, a shared approach, we're able to move forward and make change that's going to be sustainable.
Yes.
And at the same time, it's something that we have to keep revisiting over and over again. I love to tell teams and organizations and individuals, anybody who will listen, that 21 days to form a habit is a myth. I think that was said once by a really popular motivational speaker years ago. There's no science to that. What the science actually shows us is 66 to 256 days
I'm
to,
writing this one down.
yeah, write this one down.
Okay. Wow.
So it takes a really long time to form a habit, and that's just at an individual level. So for individuals, I like to let them know that it's going to take time, potentially more than you think. And then if we extrapolate that to a team level, now we're looking at an even longer term commitment to make change where we need buy-in from everyone in the team, ideally. And we need organizational structures and managerial structures that are going to support that change. A lot of what I'm doing when I work with the management team after we've done a burnout prevention program with the employees is looking at what are the obstacles going to be that would stop
Mm,
the employees from implementing what they've learned, and how can we get those out of the way so the team can keep going with the good strategies that they have now.
I love that. I always tell my clients to really get clear on what success looks like. And then let's talk about potentials that could, divert that. So when we have a clear picture of where we're going and we are aware of the obstacles, then we can also talk about the potential possibilities, right? Like we are always seeing like, okay, this could happen, and it's all fear driven. But what happens when there's all this upside as well? And being really prepared for that allows us to, we'll never feel ready to make change, but it will allow us to feel prepared, which allows us to move forward. In my book, Nina, I talk about readiness, that it's not a state of being, but it's a feeling that comes after you take action. And so many people want to make change. And I believe people just don't know how to make change. And so through the cycle of change model that I've created in my book, it really talks about the importance of small steps lead to massive change, and investing in yourself and updating your mindset and acting within your comfort zone and charging yourself up before you take a bold step and act outside of your comfort zone. When you're working with a neuroscience perspective on comfort zones and making change, what do you feel stands in people's way the most?
It's the idea that they have to make big changes all at once.
Yes.
There's an all or nothing mentality that kicks in when people want to make change. I love your work and this concept around readiness coming afterwards, because we're never going to feel ready to make a massive change. We're going to feel fear associated with that, because now we've broken away from the prediction machine brain and everything that we know and what feels safe to us. And that is going to be just impossible to overcome if the change we're trying to make is too big and too drastic. Sometimes people do it. So, they can get people who pick up their lives and they move to Paris and they never speak to their family again. It happens.
True.
Every time I'm sick, I want to move to Paris. But we do get people who just mass reinvent themselves. But for most people, that doesn't work. That doesn't feel good. And that's too drastic. Instead, it's a series of small steps that then when you look back later, you're like, wow, that actually got me a really long way. A visual that I love is a cliff with a ladder.
Mm-hmm.
If you stand at the bottom and you look up and you're like, well, no, I don't want to do small steps. Get that ladder away from me. I need to jump to the top of that cliff. You are going to be exhausted very quickly, because unless you're Superman, you're not jumping from the bottom of a ravine to the top of a cliff. You need the ladder. You need each rung to make your way up. And everything that you do for yourself, for your goals towards a change, is going to get you closer. And that's actually so much faster and easier than trying to super jump from the bottom of a ravine to the top of a cliff.
Oh, I love that analogy, Nina. It's so good. When we're talking about change, a lot of the foundation of my book talks about stepping into the next version of ourselves. And I think as a society, we're taught to kind of play it safe, have your 9-to-5 job, make sure you can bet on things, you can predict it. And for the people that don't live that way or create their own reality, I know you started your own business, and that's a change I want to talk about next with you. But when we're in this place of, I'm going to make a change, I always say that like the next version of yourself is going to reveal itself to you. And you have to, do the work. You got to prepare. You got to adjust, course correct, like all of these things in life. So when you made the big decision, okay, I'm going to start my business, I don't have to wait until I'm done my PhD, because I think so many people just wait, and we wait our lives away. Walk me through that process of, how did you make that decision? And did you meet the next version of yourself? Like, is there something that revealed itself to you that you're like, wow, this was really insightful. I didn't think this was going to happen, or any kind of perspective you can give us on that?
I remember the moment that I realized I needed to start a business. I was on vacation with my ex-boyfriend, and it was, I talked earlier about rest and creativity when you actually get some space from things. It was very much one of those things where I was away from my usual workspace. I was finishing up my master's. I was on vacation. My default mode network was wandering. And I woke up one morning on vacation and I looked at my ex and I said, I have to start a business. And he's like, what are you talking about? And I said, that's what I have to do. That's the next step. At the time, I was not aware of any jobs that were going to fit into exactly what I wanted to do next. Now I see more and more positions like chief well-being officer, which I think is cool. And there's more roles coming up. But at the time, I wanted to pursue my PhD, but I also wanted to be out in the world working with organizations, using my research helping people with the work that I was doing. And I just had this realization that the easiest way for me to do that at that moment was going to be to start a business. And there was a lot of resistance with that and a lot of forward motion at the same time. So I was very quick to book a brand photo shoot, for example. That was like an easy, fun thing that I could do. But I also went and did several job interviews for consulting companies in the next couple months because I wanted to see what else was out there and make sure that I was making a choice that was going to make sense to pursue my PhD and to start the business. And I think in terms of what was surprising, it was how well received it was because I really believed that I needed to complete my PhD before I could start this business, which in retrospect seems so ridiculous. But but it was a shocker to me. So when I first started, it was just posting on Instagram and making small online courses and master classes available to people. And the first organization that I worked with was because someone who attended one of those master classes just for herself then said, I think it would be so great if you came in and trained the team. So I showed up to this incredible engineering firm and spent the afternoon with them, just sharing everything that I knew about stress management. And they were thrilled. They loved it. We had
Yes.
a good time. And I left and just, it was this feeling of this is what I have to do for right
Hmm.
now. This is what I need to be doing.
I love
And it
that.
evolved from there.
I think it's so powerful when you listen to your voice. Like you said, I remember the moment when I knew I needed to start my business, right? Like you remember listening to your intuition, your higher knowing, your divine self. And I think it's all about alignment, right? When we make aligned action, we set the rest of our life in action as well. And when we are waiting to feel ready and we're waiting to start, it's often just fear disguised as a million different excuses. You know, we don't have enough time, we don't have enough money, we don't have enough energy, and it's our common, hats that we wear for fear. But when you moved fear aside and said, no, I'm going to start before I'm done, and it works, I really believe it's about alignment. Can you speak to that?
I think so too. And I think that when you're not aligned, it comes out in like it comes out around the edges in
Yes.
frustration and making choices that aren't actually right for you and exhausts you a little bit. And this comes to from the research on burnout, the job factors of burnout, just kind of make that connection there. Uh, the job factors of burnout are places where we feel misaligned, when we feel like
Mm,
what is higher than what we can actually do, when we feel like we don't have enough community at work, because it gives us a sensation that we're wasting our resources. When we're putting out our energy, we're still working, we're still doing things. But when we're doing it in ways that are not aligned with our values and what we want and what feels rewarding to us, that's when we experience burnout in
mm,
roles because we feel this sense of waste. And so,
wow.
taking that to a broader life perspective, when we're doing things that are out of alignment, it's going to create this sensation of waste and frustration and exhaustion. It was interesting because when I started my business, I had also made a choice around that time that was not aligned with what I wanted, which was the choice of PhD program. I started my PhD in a different program than the one that I'm currently in. And the first program was really not aligned with my goals. I left after one semester. Within a couple weeks of being in that program, it felt like everything was going wrong that could go wrong. I was exhausted. I was frustrated. I was in tears constantly. And I knew that I couldn't stay there. So when I moved to the program that I'm in now, I was very upfront about what I wanted to be doing. I remember meeting with my now supervisor and saying, I have this vision for a business. I have just started this part. At this point, I had maybe worked with one or two organizations, but I knew this was something I wanted to do and pursue more actively. And I remember saying to her, I'm going to do this and I need to be in a program that's going to be okay with that and support it. And I also need to be in a program that is going to support my work life balance because at this point in my life, I'm not willing to sacrifice that for anything. So I love my research. I'm passionate about my research. I want to do it. And I need to
And
be in a program that supports my health and is going to allow me to pursue these other things. That has been so incredible. My supervisor in my PhD is absolutely fantastic. And it's not only allowing me to have this business, it's even, I spoke at a conference in October that she referred me to.
I love
That
that.
she put me forward to. And they have a program in my university to have ambassadors for the university that I've been encouraged to apply for. It's for doctoral candidates to then be out doing press and media about their research. And my department director is like, oh my gosh, you have to do this. You're a perfect fit for it. So having that alignment is, it's just so much more fulfilling. It feels so much better. And it's part of what makes it possible for me to run a business and do a PhD at the same time.
Totally. And I love that when we're talking about aligned action, I say it's like a domino effect, right? You set that one aligned action in motion and your life goes into motion as well. And from this story that you shared, to me, it sounds like you had the courage to really say, like, listen, this program is not for me. I want to go into another program. And you were very clear on what you wanted. And that clarity provided that envelope for you to really thrive in. So when we're talking about courage, Nina, what would you love to have listeners know about courage when making change?
Courage to me is feeling the fear and doing it anyways.
Yes.
If you can look at a choice in your life and say, that's really uncomfortable, but I know it's going to be better. The fear that comes up in your body is just your brain trying to keep you safe. It's
Yes.
just your brain trying to say, I know what's familiar. I want to do what we've always been doing. It's not a sign from the universe that you shouldn't do something if you feel scared. It's just familiarity. It's just your nervous system saying, no, but we could just stay here because we know what's going to happen. You can push past it. I think if you can see something that's going to be a better choice for you, you can see that it's going to be more aligned, then courage is digging down a little bit and, sweating and shaking through it and making
Yeah.
a choice, even if it feels completely in contrast to what your nervous system is trying to get you to believe.
Yeah. And I believe, like, in society, when we want to make a decision or a change in our life, we don't need more confidence, but we need courage, because confidence is built through courage. Like, we take the action, we do the thing, we don't feel ready, and then we learn to trust ourselves. And that's my definition of confidence, is when you know that you have your own back and you can figure things out regardless of the external situation and environment. So Nina, to wrap this call up, it was so delightful to have you. I just love how you show up. I love that you could dance. That's another extra bonus. You're super smart.
Call. That's how I got it.
Yes, and you just inspire so many people. I would love for you to kind of give us your best tips from a neuroscience perspective on, building that courage muscle and how to really program ourselves and remind ourselves that, yeah, we say take the fear, embrace the fear, and go anyways. But what are some tools or some reminders that our listeners can use?
Your brain will adapt to whatever you consistently do. So if you're not feeling courage around something right now, if you're not feeling confidence around something right now, it's not because you don't have those available to you. It's because you're not doing it. It's because you're not using courage. You're not exploring your confidence. You're not developing it. It's not because you don't have it. It's in you. It's available to you, but your brain adapts to what you consistently do. So if you want to feel more courage, do things that scare you. If you want to feel more confident, do things that you suck at, and you will adapt and build those feelings.
Yes. And one final thing I wanted to share is in the Wheel of Emotions, it talks about confidence. So it breaks down the negative emotions, the positive ones. And when we look at the emotional state of confidence, it's defined by feeling brave, powerful, bold, and positive. And when I read that, I was like, oh, that's what we all want when we want to make change. We want to feel like it's positive. We want to feel powerful in it. We want to feel bold and brave, and we want to have a positive outcome, right? And so it's a really cool perspective when it's not just in our heads, right? It's not just like, oh, this is a me thing. No, this is a we thing. This is how our human physiology and our nervous system, how we are wired, like how we actually move into change. So Nina, I loved this conversation. Where can our readers and listeners find more information about you?
You can find me at my website, ninanesdoly.com, and on Instagram, LinkedIn, and TikTok, all using my name.
Amazing. And I do love all those TikTok videos. You're so creative. And you just like, I'll scroll and I see you. I always have to watch you like in the shower.
Sponsor. I have a little deal with a local computer company. They're like, as long as you send us the videos, you can have all of the garbage you want. Because I went in and I was like, I need a broken lap. I need more busted up computers so that I can take them in the shower and smash them. And the guys were like, you can have all the garbage you want. Just send us the videos so we can see.
I love that. I love that. I love that. I love that. Awesome. Well, thank you, Nina. Thank you, listeners. Remember to follow Nina. She's got some great tips on avoiding burnout, really allowing us to thrive and getting stress out of our bodies. That was a huge moment for me when I learned that, no, this is like a thing we have to do and that rest is productive. If you haven't seen her TEDx talk, make sure you check it out. It's brilliant. It's easy to understand. And one thing I love, and it is absolutely your superpower, how you take these really complex, sciencey based, and it's hard to understand, and you make it easy to understand for everyone. So thank you for that gift, Nina.
Thank you, Cara. This has been lovely.
Have a great day, everyone. Bye for now.
We hope you enjoyed this episode and would be so grateful if you could share it with someone else that could benefit from it. Let's remember to change our relationship to change itself and take aligned action. If we want to make meaningful changes in our lives, we need to embrace stepping into the next version of ourselves in the process. Remember, stop waiting to feel ready and start taking action today.